It's 104.9 Coyote Country. Time again for Fanboy Friday. Checking in from Dallas, Texas. Professional Q&A moderator and speaker. Film critic at BigFanboy.com. And show director at the Dallas Comic Show. Once again, give it up for Mr. Mark Walters. Good morning, sir.
What's up, Robert? How are you? Is it cold there?
It is cold. It's cold all over Texas, man. It's
it's funny. I'm one of those people that I love the cold weather, and yet I'm already kind of sick of it. So, but I think we're just spoiled because we get so much warm weather in Texas, and so in the few days that we actually do, when it gets a little bit chilly, we just don't know what to do.
Well, I think we got our snow fix, and then, after that, it's all just a hassle. It's like, oh, yeah, we got snow in Texas. And now it's like, okay, snow, go back. We want it to be summer again. But, yeah, it's cool. I mean, at least now I can still go through all that hot chocolate I stocked up on for Christmas that I'm trying to get rid of. So, anyway, Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're doing this with me. Let's get into it. What do we got going on in theaters this week? Let me see. I'm looking at the lists, and it looks like the new Insidious movie comes out this Friday or today.
Yeah, that's going to be the big one of the week. This is kind of that time of year, post-Christmas, post-New Year's, where January is, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's kind of a dumping ground for a lot of the studio movies. Big Hollywood movie studios. If they had any kind of faith that it was going to be like potential Oscar nomination or Golden Globe nomination, they would have tried to push to get it out in December. So if it's coming out now, it's one of two possibilities: either the studio didn't have faith in it for awards time, or they know it's crap.
Oh, wow.
I am not saying that Insidious movies are crap. That's not at all what I'm saying. I just think that in the case of Insidious movies, or in the case of a lot of horror movies, the studios have figured out that this is a good time of year to release those, because January and February, typically, they are dead months. Mm-hmm. So if you have a horror movie that's even halfway decent, it actually has a really good shot at making a lot of money this time of year.
And this is like the fourth installment. This was technically what you said, a prequel. But, I mean, it's fourth one into it. It's got its own fan base, so it's certainly going to do okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember going to see the first Insidious movie down at Fantastic Fest, I believe, or it was either Fantastic Fest or South by Southwest. It might have been South by Southwest. Uh-huh. And I was already familiar with the guys behind it, Lee Winnell, who was one of the guys responsible for the Saw movies. And Lynn Shay, of course, is a terrific character actress. It had a lot of really fun ingredients in it. So when I went to see that first movie, I had no specific expectations other than I had heard it was a ghost story. Mm-hmm. And I knew it was PG-13. And I thought, well, how scary can you make it when it's PG-13? But, man, I got to tell you, that first movie really messed with me.
It really did. I'm not a big horror. We've talked about this before. I'm not really a big fan of horror movies, but that's one of the few ones that I really I don't say I got into it, but I enjoyed it, man. It kept me... It kept me awake. It kept me interested and intrigued the whole time. So yeah. This new one's what you said, a prequel. It's the backstory.
This is exploring the life of in the Insidious movies. We've seen the character Elise, which is played by Lynn Shay, and then she has these two bumbling goofballs that follow her around, Specs and Tucker, and they're played by Lee Winnell and Angus Sampson. So Lee Winnell, who's the writer of these Insidious movies. He actually plays one of the main characters, which is one of the guys that works with her. It's kind of like, almost like a Ghostbuster type of
right.
But yeah. Much more low-key, lo-fi. They use equipment that seems really kind of antiquated and weird. And so they introduced them in the first movie, and then we've seen them in some of the other stuff. And so this new movie, The Last Key, it basically it not so much follows, but kind of goes back and tells the origins of the Elise character and how she became this ghost hunter, and how it all was kind of a very personal story, and so I think it's going to be a great showcase piece for Lynn Shay, who is, in my opinion, I think she's one of the finest character actors that's out there right now. In terms of, a lot of people may not understand exactly what that terminology means, but to me, it's like character actors are actors that you see pop up in a lot of different movies. You don't necessarily know their name. They're not household names,
right?
But they're recognizable faces. They're kind of like, it's like comfort food. You know, when you see them in a movie, you're like, oh yeah, I like that guy, or I like that girl.
I saw him in this, and you know, you
can't, very much one of
can't quite place it, but you know he's solid. Yeah, very cool. So Insidious, The Last Key, out in theaters today, rated PG-13. Also in wide release is Molly's Game, which I believe I think you saw that one and had good words to say about that, right?
Yeah, this is Jessica Chastain. Now they actually did have this open in very limited release, I believe, in New York and LA. And it's starting to spread a little bit more widely. And I have a feeling that as the award season starts to pick up, you're going to see even more theaters pick this thing up. It's got a lot going for it. It's definitely one of those award darling type films because, first and foremost, not only do you have this powerhouse performance by Jessica Chastain, who I think is pretty much great in everything she's in, but this is also the directorial debut for Aaron Sorkin. You know, brought us things like The West Wing, and Aaron Sorkin wrote movies like The Social Network. So, you know, he's proven himself to be very competent, you know, as a writer through the years. But this is his first time behind the camera as a director. And I think that he's, you know, this is definitely going to kind of put him on the map to potentially do more of that because I think he did a really great job in directing this. My only real complaint about this movie is that, and it's something that I think a lot of people are going to bitch about, and that is that it's a little bit long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it feels like the kind of movie that probably could have been 2 hours and still been okay. Like, you could have fit all the story in it that you needed to if it was 2 hours. So it's a little bit self-indulgent, but at the same time, if you're a fan of Aaron Sorkin, you know, Aaron Sorkin, he's known for rich and extensive dialogue. You know, characters walking around talking to one another, and just really great dialogue, and this movie is absolutely filled with great dialogue. It's not necessarily like a feel-good type of movie. The story follows it's based on a real-life woman by the name of Molly Bloom, who at one point in time was potentially going to be like a top-level Olympic skier, and she had a really bad accident while she was on the slopes. It took her out of the game, and one of the things that the movie touches on is it talks about, you know, like when these people that participate in the Olympics and whatnot, if they fall out of that, you know, what do you really have to fall back on? And so, you know, she was a woman that had nowhere, you know, no real direction, didn't know what she needed to do, and she kind of accidentally got involved in underground poker tournaments. And so she, you know, became sort of well-versed in that. She got a lot of contacts. She eventually started up her own underground poker tournament and became very, very successful with it. Then she decided to get out of the game because the Russian mob kind of started sniffing around. And yeah, I think sometime after she had been out of the game, the FBI came sniffing around and wanted to kind of, you know, basically go back in and try to reopen all these contacts and things that she had. So the movie is told kind of not necessarily in order. You know, it starts off with, I think, the FBI raiding and coming in and trying to raid her apartment. And then it kind of goes back and tells you all the things that happened to sort of lead up to that point. So it's not, you know, the narrative of the film is not necessarily told in linear fashion, but it's pretty interesting nonetheless. And it's got a really great cast, a lot of really good people. Idris Elba, Kevin Costner, Michael Cera's in there, Chris O'Dowd. So if you're into movies that have to deal with poker or gambling or stuff like that, this is definitely one of those types of movies that I think you'll be interested in. I found it to be really entertaining and really fun. I don't know if it's a movie I'd want to watch again anytime soon, but I do think that the number one reason you should absolutely check it out is Jessica Chastain is phenomenal, and I have every confidence that she will get nominated for Best Actress in the Oscars and may potentially take it home.
And not too bad to look at either, man. I love that girl.
That's right. She's very easy on the eyes. I'll give you that.
So that's Molly's Game in wide release now, rated R. And you had mentioned off the air to me that there was a big shakeup in the DC film world, right?
Some news came out today that was very interesting. That, you know, we've been kind of monitoring how things have happened with the DC movie universe since Justice League came out, and the movie itself it did okay. It didn't quite hit the numbers that Warner Brothers needed it to, and there's definitely been some talk about, you know, what's going to happen. What does this mean for the future of the DC Comics universe? We know there's a Wonder Woman 2 on the way, but the Batman movie seems to be very much in flux. It seems like one week you hear that Ben Affleck's all for it, the next week he's not, and then all of a sudden, you know, now he's saying again he might want to direct it. It just seems like they can't they can't seem to lock down any kind of, specific pattern on how these things are going to go. Well, so there was news that came out today that they actually replaced the head of, or the DC Movies president. They replaced him completely with a guy that is kind of a surprise. The guy that was originally in charge of DC superhero movies, oh God, I can't even think of his name. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because he's gone.
History.
He was replaced by Walter Hamada, who was the executive producer behind the Stephen King It adaptation, the new one that just came out, and the Conjuring movie series. So this is a guy that knows how to take, low or modest budgeted horror films and put them out in theaters and make a ton of money. And in a way, I think, that's kind of interesting that they would pick a guy like that to take on such huge, potentially huge films and a huge cinematic universe. But I think they also realize that they need someone to come in and kind of shake things up.
Mark, if I may, you were saying on this very segment exactly 1 week ago that you saw the trend in 2018 would be that the studios were going to find a way to make big budget movies for less money, so they would be less risky. I mean, you literally said that. Remember a week ago?
Yeah. Well, I stand by that.
So high five on that, man, because obviously you got a guy now who's going to be in charge of the DC films, who's used to making horror movies, and we all know horror movies usually, they're lower budget fare, and they usually do some really good work, for what they're given. But these guys don't work with nearly the stacks of cash that these blockbuster, Marvel and DC movies and Lucasfilm type stuff work with.
Well, and I also think it's interesting too that this particular guy, Walter Hamada, this is a guy who has worked with James Wan, who is currently directing the Aquaman movie, which is in the process of they're working on that right now. And James Wan has history with Walter Hamada through the Conjuring series. And James Wan, which is kind of in a weird kind of way, this all ties back into Insidious. But James Wan and Lee Winnell, were the guys that created Saw. And if you ever want to talk about like making a movie for next to no money and having it turn into something huge, these guys all kind of are cut from the same cloth. They all know how to work with very, very modest budgets and do innovative ideas and put them out there and have them make a ton of money. So I have no doubt that Hamada's addition to the DC universe, or the cinematic universe, I have no doubt that James Wan might have played a role in that somehow. And, it may have been a case where they looked at someone like James Wan and said, hey, you know what? This is a guy that, clearly came from very modest beginnings and has made very, very good money. Let's kind of look and see what he's been doing and who he's been working with, and enter Walter Hamada, the guy who helped bring those Conjuring movies to the big screen. So, yeah, I think this is going to be interesting. I think that this will be a much-needed shakeup, and hopefully we'll give them a little bit of a boost. I think one thing I think that we have seen so far is that with these Zack Snyder giant budget DC movies, even if they are putting butts in seats and making money, they're not producing enough of a return on the investment that they're having to put into them. Mm-hmm. And so if these guys can come in and say, you know what, we can make these movies and we can make them for much less money than what we've been spending. If they can figure out a way to do that and have it still be something that the audiences will want to see, then there's no room for them to go but up.
Right.
I'm telling you, man, a change is coming because Hollywood cannot keep going with the same formula that's been going. Streaming services are changing everything. And what's going to happen is these giant blockbuster tentpole films, or franchise films, studios they're not going to take those risks anymore. They're not going to be able to afford to take those risks anymore. So I think this right here is a very good indicator that bubble is bursting as we speak.
Interesting stuff, man. Well, what's going on with BigFanboy.com? We got any new trailers, any more information posted up today?
Yeah, we posted a couple trailers this week. There's a new trailer for Death Wish, which is a remake of the 1974 Charles Bronson movie, and this stars Bruce Willis in the title role, and he's hopefully this will be a return to form for Bruce Willis. I got to say this. I love Bruce Willis. I think Bruce Willis is a really great kind of slice of American pie actor, but let's face it, his recent year, in recent years, the movies that he's been putting out, they're just not very good. He's actually done a lot of direct-to-video movies too, which kind of screams like I'm just looking for a paycheck.
Huh.
So I'm hoping that this movie will kind of bring back some of that classic tough guy Bruce Willis that we all know and love from like the 80s and 90s. But it also will be interesting too because in today's climate, when people talk about what's going on in the news, there's a lot of shootings happening and things like that. It's a tough sell to put a movie out like this at this time. So hopefully people will be accepting of that. They did something that I think was very smart. They were originally going to release it in November, but right around the time when the first trailer had come out, there had been they had some mass shootings that had just happened.
Oh, right, yeah.
They pushed the film back to March, and I think that was a very smart move. And they also put out this new trailer, the one that we posted, which I think is kind of a better trailer in the sense of what it is portraying the film to be. The tone of the first trailer was kind of, I don't know, it was almost kind of comedic in a way. And I felt like, well, that's not really what a Death Wish movie should be. But this new trailer, I think, actually sells it a lot better, and I think it looks like a better movie. So we posted up that trailer, which you can watch now at bigfanboy.com, and we also posted up a new trailer for the movie called Winchester, which is based on the very famous Winchester Mystery House. It's a house that is extremely odd in its design. It's said to be haunted, and so this new film kind of plays up the Winchester house as a definite ghost story type of movie. It stars Helen Mirren and Jason Clarke, and looks really, really creepy, atmospheric. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And both of those movies, let's see, Death Wish comes out in March, and I believe Winchester comes out in February. So check out those trailers at bigfanboy.com. And also through the weekend, I'm going to be posting up my favorite films of the year and my least favorite films of the year. So you can read that at bigfanboy.com as well.
Well, looking forward to that. All right, man. So everybody go check out www.bigfanboy.com. Be sure and follow Mark on social media. And, of course, get on the bigfanboy.com Twitter feed, because you guys got a lot of cool information that comes off your Twitter as well. So once again, let's give it up to professional Q&A moderator and speaker, film critic at bigfanboy.com, and show director at Dallas Comic Show. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Mark Walters.
Thank you, Robert. Happy New Year.
It's 104.9 Coyote Country. Time again for Fan